So welcome everyone to the Engaging Citizens Speed Talk session, and thanks again for a wonderful crowd. I think we're glad we've got the sort of leftovers from Alan's wonderful talk. I suppose I'd like to first acknowledge the traditional owners as well, the Karuna from Adelaide, and their continuing contribution to our culture and country. First of all, I think this particular session is really going to be looking at different ways of engaging, strategies, engaging and retaining and working with citizen scientists, and how they can make meaningful contributions as well. So first of all, like just the rules of the game, it's a speed talk session, so we've got 6 minutes each, and we'll be quite strict towards that. And then at the end we'll have about 20 minutes of speaking or questions as well. So first of all, I'd like to introduce Alex Chapman from Gaia Resources. Welcome, Alex.
Hi, thanks very much. Nice to be here. 6 minutes on, the time is starting now. Firstly, I'd just like to acknowledge the elders past and present, Uncle Lewis, if he's still here, of the Ghana people whose land we're meeting on today. And secondly, I'd like to thank the speakers beforehand, particularly Alan Finkel. Thank you for that. I mean, what a perfect intro, really. My starting point really was just to say that personally I feel like science is under attack. Just like Ferdinand von Mueller, I'm a taxonomic botanist, and I've worked for 35 years and in herbaria around Australia. And in my particular area, I've seen a radical decline in the professional scientists to about 10% of its position when I first started in my career. This is a real problem for citizen science generally, because at some point you need the science behind citizen science, and there are very few people in our world that could claim to be an expert in the genus Acacia. A lot of people can identify acacias. A lot of people might say this is an unusual acacia. Very few citizen scientists would probably say this is definitively a new species of acacia. That requires a whole different amount of information. You have to be a Ferdinand von Mueller type brain to do that. And of course he was dealing with 6,000 plants in the 1870s when he wrote The Second Floor of Australia. There's now something more like 30 to 40,000 plants. So that's just my little rave there. I built FloraBase as a technological approach to the decline of this sort of knowledge some time ago. It's an electronic floor of Western Australia, effectively. And naively, at the time, I wanted to look complete. It was never going to be complete. Taxonomic churn changes on a daily basis, a number of new species, new names, synonymies, new specimens, images. It all changes on a daily basis. What I regret most now, looking back, is that I didn't put on the homepage big graphs that said, this website is 50% incomplete. So we only have descriptions for 63% of the flora. We don't have images for 48% of the flora. Because, in my experience, most people, when they look at a website that's called the Flora of Western Australia, go, great, they've done the Flora of Western Australia. I know politicians think that, and I really regret not having put those statements right up to so they understand that funding needs to continue to support science and citizen science. That's 2 minutes, 50 seconds. However, incompleteness is a useful thing to know. I like to think of it as lacunae, gaps in our knowledge, holes in our knowledge. It's a way of targeting effort in our science. And to think of it requires a change in perspective. Here's some people who are very engaged, some citizens who are very engaged. Here's a different perspective on the way we might look at things. So here's some indigenous knowledge about the stars. And as you might know, in indigenous astronomy, unlike Western astronomy, in Western astronomy, we choose the brightest points and make shapes out of them and talk about galaxies. And in astrology, we make mythological figures out of them. In indigenous astrology and astronomy, they use the lacunae, the dark spots that make the holes. And this just illustrates that very nicely, I think. A different perspective on gaps that leads to a whole different way of thinking. The next couple of things I will show you, a couple of local case studies. I'm from Western Australia, and here's some case studies which think about how citizen science might be used to fill gaps. The first is microblitz out of the University of Western Australia, and you can see here there's a little illustration of the knowledge we have gained through microblitz of the soil samples. They're sampling the soil microbia across Western Australia. It's done by Winthrop Professor Andy Whiteley, and he's done this for the whole United Kingdom. So this is an order of magnitude, possibly two, that he's taken on here. But citizen science are gathering soil data, and they're zooming in, and they're specifically being asked to look at the gaps in our knowledge. And you can see just from this part of Western Australia the amount of diversity in the soil. The data, we're working with them at the moment to complete the feedback loop. What did they find in the lab when it was sequenced? What sort of bacteria were collected? So that citizen scientists can contribute data and find the result of their efforts. And that's a key issue with continuous engagement strategies that I'll come to a little later. Case study 2, big hi to Marnie, who is the engagement officer for Dolphin Watch. Where are you? Here's some data from Lars Beja showing you that university researchers might be able to put 67 hours in a 3-month period and observe 259 dolphins and cover 12 of the 39 zones. The citizen scientists, again, are delivering perhaps an order of magnitude more data to the effort of observing dolphins in the Swan Canning River Park as a way of monitoring their behaviour and the health of the river. So there's a very simple example. That's 6 minutes. Here's our way of thinking about this. Apps are the beginning. That's why my co-author peers told me to put them at the top. I don't normally think of that way. I normally think of data being aggregated upwards. Apps are a good start, but unless it's not a case of build it and they will come. Unless you have really great engagement strategies from the beginning, your project is doomed to failure. And there's 2 circles here, and we like to call these the zones of engagement. The apps contribute the data. You need to give them immediate feedback. The citizen scientists have spent a lot of time giving great data. They want to see that the data is being submitted, received. They want to see it in the context of all the other data that's been received, and they want to view the data. They want to see it on citizen science portals for that project. On the other hand, the scientists get to see it as well from the same data repository. They can curate the data in the repository, they can download the data and do their science research, and you can see an example there of an admin portal for the data. There's a research paper. Really important to complete the loop so that citizen scientists see that their data contributes to actual research papers. Almost finished. Here's some things. You can see that on the poster session. I'm not going to read it out, but there's 2 types of engagement strategy in my mind. One is immediate, hence when you upload data from the app, tell people if it's been received. Give them a data view so that they can see where their point is. They can use it to brag to their friends. Look, I collected data. And sustained engagement strategies, training, newsletters, meet the scientist events, give them, as Alan Finkel said, a reason to go out there and be impassioned about doing citizen science and see how they're contributing. And my name's Alex Chapman. Come and see me. I'm here for the next 3 days. Come to the poster session tomorrow. Come and talk to me about engagement strategies and apps. And see you in the March for Science in April 14. Thank you.